Sounds good.
Okay, take two. Take
Yeah.
two.
Oh,
Um,
good. Thank you. I really appreciate connecting to you and yeah, talking about this. And also I'm curious also about your work. You have a really nice website and these groups you have. How long have you done this, Barnaby?
I first started the practice of Ally Work in the fall of 2019. So
Okay.
uh, I was introduced to it. I think I mentioned to you when I attended a workshop, a talk, and then a workshop with Raff one weekend here in Portland.
Oh, right, right. You said the only way for you to get that it was to sign up, right? I remember you said something about that because he was so busy, right? You kind of
Oh yeah, and this was actually
needed an appointment for a session, something like that you mentioned.
yeah, this was before I even had heard of the guy. I had not heard of the guy. I was invited by a board member of the Oregon Friends of
Uh-huh.
Jung
Oh,
um, to
uh-huh.
to a talk because someone who was doing some pro bono marketing work for us just thought I might find it interesting.
Uh-huh.
So he got me a free ticket to the talk, and then I signed up for the workshop, and yeah, just felt this immediate
Resonant.
resonance
Yeah.
and deep sense of meaning
Yes.
and
Yeah. That alignment kind of that we feel like, oh, I'm here. There's a reason why I'm here right now. Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
yeah.
And what was the title of his workshop?
I'll drop it in the
Oh, yeah.
I'll drop it in the chat. Just let me find the link here. um uh, Almost there.
No worries. I actually sent him a note. I don't know how I got her contact information. I haven't heard back, but just inquire before I even found you, inquiring to see if there's any kind of workshops or talks that he has coming up, but I haven't heard back. And then when you mentioned that he's not feeling well, I figured, okay, that's probably why. Thank you for, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, how
Uh,
long ago did you write to him?
not that long ago. I would probably say maybe a week or two before I found you.
Uh-huh. And when did you first discover his work?
I discovered his work a few months ago when because I've been really exploring Sufism, Ibn Arabi and others, and somehow I can't even remember. I have no recollection of how he popped up, but I will tell you something. I mean, my whole life, I have a friend in Spain that I talk a lot about things that I notice happening, the synchronicity. I feel like I often stumble, in important things in my life. I've always stumbled into them.
Mm.
Stumble. There's stumble just like coincidence. There's no stumbling, but it really feels like that. It's like I often have to really think hard. In this case, I can't even remember how, Jeffrey Raff just popped up. But I remember ordering those books, both of his, well, I since have ordered his, I think it's called Alchemical Imagination or something, Jung and the Alchemical. But I ordered those two books. They sat for a while. I'm like, why did I order these books? You know? And then I started leafing through them and I'm like, oh, this is weird. Why did I just get these
Mm.
books without no? And then of course I start reading and it's like, oh my God, this is wonderful.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
yeah. So that's how, so what, since 2019, and then you were saying something about how it just became so clear to you that this is calling to you, and you sort of
Mm.
made some sort of transition.
Yeah, yeah. I was doing pretty well professionally after being with Peace in Schools, which is a nonprofit, which was started here in 2014. So
Mm.
I was the third employee.
Uh-huh.
And within the first year of my being part of the team, we created the first 4 credit mindfulness class in high schools.
Oh, nice.
Um, and
Yeah.
our founder, Caverly Morgan, she's a Zen teacher. So um, we ended up with a very rich curriculum with,
Mm.
about it, and the nonprofit is still going. So it's about a 400-page curricula. It's very rich and in depth, and even includes things which are similar to parts work because
Mhm.
Caverly's Zen teacher incorporated some psychological, some metacognitive work, including a frame that she called aspects of the personality. So this would have been
Interesting,
mindlessness.
right.
Yeah, and
It's
so we even
yeah, it does
we
how things come together.
exactly, yeah. So you can imagine the high school students, one of the lesson they're learning how to be in relationship to these different aspects of the
Right,
personality from a
right.
place of compassion.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I mean, just to be given, to be given that, it's almost like being given a language, right? That then allows you to put words
Yeah.
it's really putting words to what you're already feeling, right?
Yes. 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 Yeah. It's putting words to what you're already feeling. It's
Yeah,
a nice way of
yeah.
describing it. Yeah.
And nice to then be able to, it also kind of then gives you a sense like this is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you can imagine in a high school classroom, um, they're the age which we taught to, which was 15 to 18, it's the second largest window of neuroplasticity after 0 to 3.
Yeah.
So when you have, as our program was set up to do, have an embodied teacher
Mhm.
with years of practice, you
Mhm.
have a curriculum with fidelity, so we could do it across the schools. And
Mhm.
then you have a strong sense of compassionate community and
Right.
a feeling
Container, right? Yeah.
connectedness, kind of like you would in a therapeutic group, but more
Yes.
more appropriate for a classroom setting. And
Mm-hmm.
um
Well, that itself, really brings so much safety, right? The sense
yeah,
just being in community,
yeah, yeah.
not
And
feeling isolated.
oh, it's true. We know the isolation, the separation is is probably the root of it all. That sense
Yes,
of
yes,
separation.
yeah, like the illusion, right? Like the
Hmm.
Sufis would say in some sense, right? The illusion of feeling alone or not belonging, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's professionally where I most recently came from. And yeah, so I was still working with Peace in Schools, and but decided to step back mostly from the org uh just as the pandemic, well, just before the pandemic was starting, so I could put my attention into ally work,
Mhm.
and then had that fellowship with the Garrison Institute a couple years to support that
Oh,
work.
that's beautiful. So you were able to get that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
When
know.
you really know it's meant to be, don't you?
Yeah. And are you in Santa Monica, did you say?
No, I'm not in Santa Monica, but I'm not too far from it. I'm in near West Hollywood. I'm just
Ah, okay.
from this neighborhood doesn't have it's like called Beverly Glen or some it's
Mhm.
near the Beverly Center and it's very just adjacent
Okay.
to West Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, the person who really initiated the fellowship at the Garrison Institute, I don't know if you'd be familiar with this work. His name's Dan Siegel. He's a
Oh God, yeah,
psychologist.
I know
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think you may have mentioned him. I remember, years back, like, I don't know, 20 years, or maybe a little less than 20 years, just when I had started my clinical, master's in clinical psychology, just,
Mm.
learned. I did a program that was very somatic,
Ah,
really beautiful, beautiful program, but not very well funded, because this school never was accredited. So I was actually very lucky,
mm.
because even though they provided a very alternative program, we studied, Porges, Stephen Porges, before
Ah,
all these people, like,
wow,
Peter Levine, all these people.
wow.
Yeah, way back to when I started, 2007. But somehow they never got accreditation, and they ended up
Yeah.
folding and being purchased by the Chicago School of Psychology. So I was very lucky, because I was able to graduate from an accredited school, because otherwise I would not be able to move on to become licensed. But yeah, Dan Siegel, I know him well. He's the guy, the neuro, right, psychology
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. 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 He created a little group of people to help him with the book project he was working on. So most of us ended up transitioning from that into the fellowship, and he's
Hmm.
been a mentor for all of us. These are all people he's met
Oh,
in his
wow.
journey through life and just happened to feel a spark with. And we were just meeting with him the other day post fellowship.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
But yeah, he's, as you probably know, he's done a few collaborations with Richard Schwartz, bringing his interpersonal neurobiology into dialogue with IFS.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's amazing how when they get big like that, like, Dick Schwartz and all, Thomas Hubel, they all
yeah.
like there's this, right? You see
Hmm.
Terry Real doing something with Dick, and
Yeah,
it's funny. I think that's a little bit a phenomena of our times, right? Like,
totally.
it's just,
It's like the sort of new form of guru, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, anyway.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're and what is, and I'm open to any questions you have. What's your passion? What's your dream? I mean, your passion is ally work, obviously,
Yeah.
but what's your dream, Barnaby, with this?
It's a,
Or is it in the realm of being shaped?
mm, yeah, yeah. What is my dream? It's a great question. Um, the dream is simply to create access to ally work.
Mm.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
the intuition, or the call at least, is, um, yeah, to simply be in service to that dream.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I uh, I think at this moment in time, even letting go of what exactly the fruition is and simply trusting in the unfolding.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So important, isn't it? Because it takes you out of your head into your body and into the moment, and
yeah,
actually lets the ally have a little more of a say,
mm,
in a sense, right?
yeah,
It becomes more of a co-creation rather than.
yeah, yeah,
That's lovely.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way a little bit. I think I, you know, I realized, just, and this is both Jungian, this is from Jung, this is from Sufis. I don't even know. This probably actually comes from the ancient Greeks, but I feel so this really innate commitment to knowing oneself, that this real this incredible, such a incredible and overwhelming task, I think, of knowing oneself, in that, and how life just kind of gives you all the sort of what would you call it? Trials and errors and the whole, uh, uh, all the possible scenarios for that to come to fruition, right? And so for me, that, of course, that for me is something I'm very passionate about and see as my, in a sense, like I've never said it like this, but as my, my, I guess, um, goal. I don't like the word goal, but my endeavor in life. And I feel that, uh, who's better to come along on that path than the ally, right? In a sense, you know what I'm saying? And so I also feel that is very much also my dedication as far as what I facilitate for other people.
Yeah.
Even though right now I sit with a hat of a IFS therapist, IFS trainer, but in a sense, I can always feel how there's this tugging that it's somehow, and I even notice in my sessions, I actually notice in my sessions how I'm stretched beyond just sitting as an IFS therapist. I I have to tell you this thing. I mean, this piece of synchronicity is just so astounding that I have this client who is in Bombay, right? She reached out to me from a certain group that is learning IFS they're from India, and I had given my name as someone who would just take people very low fee or who don't live here. And it's like it was incredible because this we've been working with with recurring dreams, because I love working with dreams. And these two last recurring dreams of a figure, like I'm like full of goosebumps as I'm telling you this, of an inner deity that is showering her with love. And the impact this is having on her, right, of just giddiness, embarrassment, etc. And so, yeah, it was really interesting, like I did the first part of the work was IFS work, to have the parts that are uncomfortable, right? Just be heard and be able to give her space so that she could actually have access to her self energy in order to meet and really welcome this inner internal figure, right? This, whether it's an ally or whether, I was reading some passages in Jeff Raff that some are that ally, sometimes it can be an ally, or that, what does he call it? God, human, God, human, God, like, right? Like, actually, he calls one an inner deity, which is, and this figure did not want to reveal its name, which is interesting, but did name like a Vishnu, Krishna type allegiance. So it was, yeah, it's interesting. Here I am. I would have sat with this dream totally differently before coming across Ally Work, before finding his book and all that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. What a meaningful dream. I was
Yeah.
just
Oh my
imagining
God.
if I'd had that dream, how
Oh,
how much how powerful it would feel.
oh.
Yeah.
And it was right after the
Mm,
session before 2 sessions, because she had this first one. I mean, it was the love of this figure for her was overpowering for her
mm, mm,
system.
mm,
And before the third session, before, she was entirely dissociated and unable to actually have enough of a seat to do work.
mm,
So it's just really interesting, right? How sometimes that's the threshold
mm,
in which it might show up, right?
mm, 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 mm,
Yeah, it was
mm,
quite wonderful. Yeah, I also felt like, oh my God, I am, with this incredible gift for this woman that I get to help her hold it and help her. Like when we had those parts step back, the giddy and the embarrassed adolescent parts, actually she started in self moving toward the figure, which was
mm,
really interesting.
mm,
Instead of being overwhelmed with embarrassment
mm,
at,
mm, mm, mm. Yeah. Um, I'm brought back to your words to know yourself and how incredibly rich and multidimensional uh, that simple phrase to know yourself,
Mhm,
how much can happen in the course of that journey, like your
mm,
client. Yeah. Mm,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
yeah. Yeah. I'm being mindful to not put the cart before the horse, and in this case, the cart would be the intellect.
Oh yeah.
um, because I could go to some more analytic questions, but I'm feeling a, sense of just kind of I'm appreciating the sense of presence in this conversation and allowing myself to kind of enjoy the slowness of the unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank
Mm,
you for sharing that. Sort of when the stream just is bobbing through kind of the flow.
mm, right. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose some might call that the feeling into the somatic or the energetic
Yeah.
body. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you naming that actually as well. I find myself so often craving more of that tempo in my life. And like even in the morning when I sit to do some writing with ally work, what I call ally work, just sitting, right? Being curious. I notice, how many things come, like you said, from the cart, from the intellect, and just sort of, interrupt that flow.
Mm, mm, mhm. Yeah. Uh, yeah, there's something I'm sensing into lately. Uh, just like a relaxing around the mm, technical understanding of the ally. And
Oh, right. Yeah. Like almost like defining it, you mean?
I do mean that. Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
there's lots of beautiful perspectives and definitions that
Yeah.
help us to orient
Mhm, mhm,
and understand. But
mhm, mhm, mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something that feels to me very close to the Sufi or the Islamic origin story, in which the divine says to the creature, um, uh, be,
Mm.
and then says, am I not your cherisher?
Mm.
And what else can one say but yes, in that moment of
Yeah.
recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
the kind of qualities of the facing and the intimacy and the dialogue and the flow of that, um,
Mm.
feels like you could place many different structures or words on what that connecting is. And Ally Work is the one that has
Mm.
called me in particular, and
Mm.
I really appreciate the simplicity of the practice and the surprising depth of access that it um,
Yeah. Yeah.
allows. Yeah,
Yeah.
and something a little bit magical that Raff,
Mm.
however he conveyed this, it was there was a gift in how he's sharing it, because he didn't lock it down into
Mm.
my thing.
Yeah.
And um
Yeah, you can really feel his, I don't want to say personality or character, his essence in the way he's written his books, in the way he's relayed this. You can really sense him
mm,
in the delivery of what, like what you're
yeah,
saying, or what
that's
he's,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very non-intrusive,
mm, mm, mm.
allowing, kind of like open-ended.
Yeah, yeah, I was impressed with him in person. He wasn't acting as a guru, he was acting as a facilitator.
Yeah,
um and he was down to earth and
yeah.
very validating of
Mm.
people.
Mm. I
uh,
listen to him on YouTube,
mm,
and I usually a pretty good. I can read people for the most part, not always. And I could sense all the things you're saying,
mm,
just how he was, how he spoke, how he conveyed his ideas, how he then did Q&A with people. It was
mm,
all very present throughout his that
mhm,
those characteristics that you share, just that respect and humbleness. I mean,
mm,
humility is, what was it? Today I was listening to one of the someone speaking about some aspect of light in Sufism, a young guy from England, but originally from Damascus,
mm,
talking about how important it is for hubris, right? Not to step
mm,
into the knowledge, right? Like just how to, just what we are talking about, how to, yeah, always be in that deference to, to the divine in a sense, right?
mm,
And
mm,
and that we're just in a sense vehicles, right? Like
mm.
that's what keeps us maybe to some extent in check.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. I even feel that in ally practice, when I'm engaging it, it's just like if I was sitting in Zen meditation, I mean, it happens to be how the setup is in my apartment, and
Yeah.
the sitting practice is comfortable for me, but it's like sitting on the ground. It's very much a grounding and the humility of coming into the body and stillness in order for the receptivity to arise for
Mm,
that ally connection to be present.
mm,
um yeah, yeah, yeah. That word receptivity, I think, both from the ally practice and from studying Ibn Arabi, it stands out a lot, that word for me. Yeah,
mhm, mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, even about your own practice and sitting on the ground. And it's almost like that's the ritual, right? The ritual of how we prepare and how we, it's almost the posture of kneeling down. I will say that, like, for lack of, I guess, maybe something more precise, that posture of kneeling down of humility, I think, yeah, right, is what I'm feeling from what you're saying, and how important that is, because it's probably a way of guaranteeing, there's no guarantee, but maybe assuring that we're stepping into it, at least from the right place, a
Mm,
place of humility, a place of,
mm,
like bowing down to
mm,
the ulum, ulum, the knowledge, the wisdom, the, you know, this, or the spirit too.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. It's the way you're describing the bowing down to the knowledge spirit. It's, again, it's like presencing this intimacy of relationship. Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
if I was when I like if I'm talking about ally work casually, uh, which can be a challenge to talk about it casually, but it can be easy in words for it to come across as esoteric. And I think as we're reflecting, I want to acknowledge just how embodied a practice it is for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, it's hard for me to think of engaging in the practice without being
Mm-hmm.
an embodied, in an embodied present uh,
Mm-hmm.
way of being. And so I like that. It reminds me of a phrase that Corban had, spirit spirits becoming corporealized, and bodies becoming spiritualized. This,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
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 yeah. It's I hear you, about, like, maybe this isn't your word, but almost like, what's that word? Will it come to me when we make something like that mundane, or there's a verb, but or a participle, something anyway, I feel what you're saying. It's like almost like this deference you have to this, and then and then having to explain it, or that's the word that I'm looking for, right? Like in explaining it, maybe there's a sense that am I making it am I making it mundane, or am I intellectualizing it too much? And I think I totally, does that make sense the way I just said that? There's a word that I will hopefully remember, but that makes a lot of sense to me, because I think that speaks to me almost of how our own psyche and our own self almost holds on to this in such a way with tender fingers, and because we're worried of losing sight of its sacredness somehow. So maybe we kind of might have a tendency to hold it with kids' gloves, right? That makes sense what I'm saying. And I don't know if it speaks to what you were saying. And
Yeah.
I think that speaks a little bit to our own, to the fragility inside us of just this, um, because we're really talking about this way in which, from a very physical existence, we're making this connection with material from the imaginal realm, right? Which is what this is all about, and how tenuous that can be sometimes, and how we can almost have, and not almost, but we probably have this fear of somehow losing that. It's almost like there's a part of us that feels, if I don't tread carefully, I'm gonna lose the magic, or it's whatever. It's that touch, does that make sense what I'm saying? And yet I think, in a sense, that we actually, I think this, but I'm not sure what you think about what I'm going to say. I think, in a sense, we want to, it behooves us to somehow come into relationship with a part of us that does maybe does get nervous about that, so that we can actually hold on to the mundaneness of it too. Because, in a sense, I think Ibn Arabi, or any of these people, Avicenna, or, Suhrawardi, any Al-Ghazali, they taught, not that I would ever compare myself to them, but just the notion of, they taught common people. So they probably had to find a very common language that could actually invite the most common denominator person, right? Create the bridge that could make this inviting to people. And I think it's because there is in all of us, no matter who, I think there is that the receptor site for this, right? So the
Yeah.
mundaneness of it is actually also a good thing. Um, but anyway, I want to say that, and pause and create space, for you. I don't know how articulate I was in what I was saying, but it definitely came from a thought that was awakened in me as I was listening.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate what you're saying, and it touches into me. Yeah, to use the language you're sharing, this part of me which uh, feels some kind of senses some kind of fragility in the speaking of this, or caution or sensitivity. And even this morning, I was recording a very short clip, and as I was speaking, I realized I could just let the words come from the energy that was bigger than just my body,
Yeah.
right? And,
Right.
and
Right.
say again.
Right. I said
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
So your words are a pointer to me, or a reminder to me, that in sharing about ally work, it's like, can I let the sharing be the
Yeah.
sharer rather than
Beautiful.
me?
Yeah. Uh, well, I love that because that kind of brings us a little bit to IFS just for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where it comes in handy is to notice parts that unbeknownst to us. I mean, these parts can be, like elephants, really clear and loud, and we can just really hear their, um, hear them and sense them, or they can be really subtle. Like it can be so subtle that it can be that part that walks on eggshells with this material,
Mm.
and that, right? Like, and then in doing that, there's a fear underneath, maybe, right? Not necessarily, but maybe, oh, I might somehow pollute,
Mm.
or that word that is almost coming closer to the tip of my tongue, this work, if I don't tread carefully, right? And then in so doing, can actually make us can sometimes render us a little too cautious with it, less playful, maybe, right?
Yeah,
Less
exactly. Less
silly.
playful, less creative, more, for me, more
Right.
conceptual. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think the intellectual piece that you mentioned before is really important, um, because we live in a world that is so, where the intellect is king,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
The intellect is king. The intellect you know is who drives the big bus, and flies the plane and all those things. So I think that is where, um that's, to be honest with you, Barnaby, I have such interest in a lot of things. I mean, I just feel like I'm a student. I'm the archetype of the student. And that's one piece of knowing myself, is that I've always been that. I've always had this thirst for knowledge and learning, and it's probably part of also my soul's
Mm.
work. But what I realize a lot is, how easily, like when we intellectualize things like this at the same time, uh, we rob it of its numinosity, or whatever you would call it. It's so that's a real that's I think that's the where we almost want to be able to feel as if we're walking on eggshells, right? So that's where
Uh-huh.
we want to really be mindful, not walk on eggshells, but be super mindful, because our intellect just automatically, it's like in IFS work, I notice, we notice, all IFSers, that thinking parts are one of the most dominant parts that just jump in and want to covet something, and just get to thinking about it. So I think that, yeah, that's a place where it's, I think I can imagine how ally work, and when I say ally work, I'm not talking specifically about your company, but just working with the ally, right? How
Mhm.
it can, yeah, it can, for lack of a better word, it can be disrupted or polluted or, changed if we're not mindful, I think, of the intellect stepping in too much.
Yeah, yeah, I see it as fixing, not in the sense of making whole something broken, but fixing something into place with the concepts.
Hmm.
And now I'm relating to this veil of, now I'm relating through this limiting idea or perspective.
Mhm.
I may not even be conscious that I'm doing that. And
Mhm.
so staying close to the flow,
Mhm. Mhm.
dynamic, um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The aliveness, really, the livingness.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. It's such a different vibe, right? Like I was just thinking while listening to you that one example of the intellect imposing itself on things is that the intellect wants to have a clean story, wants there to be a sense. We're talking about this, and okay, what's our conclusion, or what's being, right? Like there's this thing that gets imposed when the intellect is, do you know what I'm saying? And it can be in many forms, right? Can come, not many forms, but it can have different aspects to it. So it's so innate, because of course it's a huge epigenetical thing for intellect, right?
Mm,
Like birds don't have that, animals don't have, right? It's just human.
mm,
It's difficult to know where it ends and we begin, or vice versa.
mm, mm,
So like you said, I forget the word you said, like that, you know, sense of being right here, right? I forget the word you used just moments ago.
mm, mm. Yeah,
Ele- Like,
the living.
yeah, the living, that's it.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's really one of the most important divine names in Sufism for beings like us, which are share that quality of the divine name, the living.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The living, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, which then is sort of almost synonymous with experience, right? Being in the experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That there's in a
Other than outside of it somewhere.
yeah the tasting, the
Right.
the beingness.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a diagram Ibn Arabi drew, and Stephen Hertenstein
Yeah.
in one
Uh-huh.
moment was saying that in commenting on this diagram, he he might say that Allah is sheer being.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When did you encounter Sufism? I think you mentioned, well, you mentioned leaving Iran in the
Yeah,
revolution.
yeah, not I'm afraid not a long, long time ago. I mean, I've of course known about Sufism for a long time. Who knows? I probably have aspects of it through a cultural legacy in me, a cultural heirloom, as we say in IFS. But I really, started more intentionally kind of reading and mostly listening to things about Ibn Arabi just less than a year ago. It's not been that long, but I tend to have parts that really get zealous and really jump in. I think my parts get very passionate and excited about things that speak to me, so they delve in very quickly, and that's, I think, a little bit what happened. And along the way, all this started coming together.
Mhm. Mm,
And
mm,
hints of it were there with even as a IFS therapist, because I've always, my whole life, I mean, I've always, um, I feel like I've always searched number one, to really know myself deeply,
mm.
to not, and I never felt like I know myself, really. I felt there was always so much more to discover and make sense of. It's really amazing when we think about it, how we really see I don't know what the perfect metaphor would be. I think maybe it would be just a very foggy day where you just see this little corner of something, and that's how most of us look at life, right? We're just seeing just a tiny little snippet of a much bigger picture.
Yeah, 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 yeah. To me, the dialogue with the ally opens up the vista
Right.
of, well, I would say, to use psychological language, I would say it's highly effective for perspective taking,
Mm.
and but highly generative of,
Yeah. And may I say
you
something?
know,
Forget your
please, yeah.
perspective taking / getting out of yourself, not the bigger your
Mm.
smaller yourself,
It's like
right?
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Like just, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's so relieving. This is actually one of the most striking things to me about the ally work practice for me, is just how generative it is energetically and creatively.
Mhm.
Um, and that's been interesting for me as someone who's done sitting meditation for, I don't know, 30 years this year. Um, and not to compare the practices, but there's a real joy in both having the capacity and the training to be with what is, but then to be in relationship to what is in that creative, energizing, also like healing, I would say healing
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can completely understand. And it is, I mean, I don't know, hopefully it's okay that I say this, because in a sense, it takes it to another level, right? It takes it to a whole other level, because it takes it into this dialogical space, right? Into this relationship. And it just, there's something also like, right, about, and I haven't experienced that yet, really, but I know it's there. I've experienced that when I haven't sat and intentionally worked with the ally, as in this journaling, active imagination type dialogue. I've experienced it in sudden moments of realization before I even knew the word ally for this kind of thing. But is the love, right? Is just being able to experience the love uh, that is there in this relationship. And that's something I'm, yet to tap more into.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's like my client did. My
Mm.
client really experienced that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. There's, for me, there's implicitly this caring dimension. I remember Raff in I think it's in the Practice of Ally Work book, he says the relationship with the ally is like no other love, and yet seems to contain every other kind of love.
Yeah. Mhm.
I thought that was a really beautiful phrase
Yeah.
from him. And uh, for me, I think when you asked earlier, what's my dream? There's some kind of recognition of like what it means to have the possibility of connecting with the ally in
Mhm.
a world where there's so much
Mhm.
loneliness and
Mhm. Mhm.
perception of not being loved.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I remember in the high school class, high school mindfulness class, one of my students. This was the first year I was teaching, and I remember after the first semester, I asked a couple students if they would just meet me in the library to share about their perspectives on the class.
Mm.
And I was almost shocked at how
Mm.
much it was impacting them.
Yeah, that's
And all of a
great.
sudden I realized,
Mm.
oh, wow, this is actually really landing in a very deep way. And remember one of those students who struggled with depression and anxiety and perhaps even sometimes suicidal ideation.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and she referred to now in this mindfulness class, as I was saying, we had a kind of deeper orientation to mindfulness. So we had at the core of our curriculum this emphasis on unconditional love. And this student was saying, like, even when I can't access, when I feel I can't access being present or feeling calm, just to know that there's the possibility of
Yeah.
unconditional love, it means everything.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like that, just the awareness of that, right?
Just the awareness of it. Yeah. The, as you said, the knowing of it, like
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
yourself, and to know yourself,
Yeah.
having tasted that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because I always say that this knowing from here is so much deeper
Mm.
than this knowing, right? I remembered, by the way, the word I was thinking about desperately of making mundane, and it's trivializing. It's,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the word I was desperately looking for. Um, it's
Mm.
Amen. It's come. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good word, because that can be almost what I experience as painful. I'll just to give a hypothetical, let's say someone's asking me about ally work and I share about it, and maybe I don't know if it lands or if I said it well. And to play with your word, it's almost this feeling of like, oh, has this thing which is so meaningful to me now just become a piece of trivia in someone's
Exactly.
mind?
Exactly. And here's where I'm gonna play the devil's advocate.
Hmm.
And it's okay if it is, if it has, because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, this is here it comes, Barnaby. It's just I'm just thinking these thoughts as it's coming, because and the fact that it isn't trivial is going to return it to its place,
Hmm.
even in, in moments where it becomes trivial, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Be yeah. If well, for the student who's really serious, right?
Mhm.
And who maybe needs to make it trivial to then come back to it. You know,
Right. Right.
that's the IFS piece, because
Uh,
parts sometimes need to really take something and really like a yarn, ball of yarn, just get it all, knotted up and then slowly
mhm.
allow it to, uh reorder itself, you know?
Yeah. I see that in the ally work context too. Yeah.
Yeah,
How can we knot
yeah,
this up and
yeah,
try and make sense of it to
yeah,
our
exactly.
logical mind? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's I don't know which tradition it is. Maybe it's from the Buddhist tradition or the Hindu tradition, but like the intellect functions like this net, like a fishing net. It's trying to put things in its net.
Right. Like things that go through and what stays, right? What stays is
Um,
the catch of the day. All right.
right.
That's what's kept, you
Yeah.
know. That's
Yeah.
what can be, yeah. Anyway, it's
What can be digested in that moment?
right. I mean, that's the catch of the day. That's we're just not even gonna think about what didn't get, what didn't stay in the net,
Yeah.
right?
The
Why?
the uh, the what's the whale in the Bible? Noah and the whale. The big whale that's still out there,
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
ready to swallow us whole.
Yes. Ready to help us transform.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Into the
We're,
darkness.
we're waiting. Yes. And
Uh,
yeah, anyway, this is so lovely and uh yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Let me pin you down, if I might, for a moment. Do you have a little more time?
yeah, we can go for another. Would it be okay if we go till maybe 3:30, and then I
Yeah.
actually have a training coming up in less than 2 weeks that I need to start
Mhm.
preparing for IFS training.
Yeah. So let me just sit with it for a moment.
Oh, please, absolutely take your time.
I think because ally work is relatively unknown as a practice form, and Raff's work is relatively unknown.
Hmm.
For example, Ibn Arabi is much more well known. IFS is more well known. And I remember you saying in the group session that you saw ally work as differentiated from IFS. So, I've thought about this a lot. like, what is the value of ally work? What does it afford? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting attention on this?
Mm.
And I'm curious, just from your lived experience, from your point of view, not as a definitive answer, but just what is it? What do you feel? Why is it meaningful to you? What are you curious about it, or why does it pull you?
Yeah, I'm really appreciating sitting also with hearing you, right? Like I'm hearing, if it's okay for me to reflect back to you what I'm hearing,
Yes.
right? Like there's this way in which you moved, right? Like there was this movement, you made this pivot, right, in this direction that's spoke so clearly for you, right? And I'm really hearing that there's a part, or it doesn't matter whether it's a part, but there's a question also for you, maybe, of why did I do this? Why have I chosen this path? Is that, why am I putting, I think your word was, why am I
Mm.
putting attention, this, right, attention, time, passion, investment into this?
Yeah. I'm partly framing it that way as a way of asking. And you're right. There's
Because I love that. I love that you said that. And I really wanted to honor that rather than me
um,
just answering that from my
yeah,
stance, right?
yeah, yeah. That when I was in uh my sleep last night, or waking from my sleep, I was feeling don't know if you've ever experienced this, but uh almost like a subtle feeling of being in like a sea of energy.
Ah,
And
mm,
and there's some teachings of Ibn Arabi that have been really resonating for me in the last few days. And the words unspeakable beauty
mm,
uh, came up for me.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and then a phrase that Ibn Arabi shares very often, the inability to perceive is a perception itself.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Um,
Almost like reminds me of the word awestruck,
uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
Awestruck, or
Mhm.
in the presence of something that inspires us with awe.
Mhm.
Just that experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Precious. There's a preciousness, um, a like a flower is precious,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
delicate.
mm-hmm,
One wants to be sensitive in its presence. Um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
uh, so
And how, like what happens for you when you sense into that preciousness of
mm,
what of what of what this discovery has been for you.
Mm,
That's the, it's almost like brings you,
mm,
uh, this is true for you, but almost face to face with this, right? This experience
mm.
coming in relation with something so precious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a hadith that Ibn Arabi would always refer to, and it's so deep in my heart now, but I was a hidden treasure, and I loved to be known.
Yes, yes,
These words of the divine, but
right, right,
um,
right. It's almost like that recognition, right?
mm,
That
right.
recognition.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This is what Eric Winkle is translating the Futuhat. What is it all about? It's about the recognition. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
It's like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's what ally work is to me. It's a form, it's an invitation to recognition. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And in that there's much. And the words that came up this morning were the unspeakable beauty in that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In
Yeah.
that sea of what did you call it? Light?
Energy. Yeah.
Energy, energy, sea of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that metaphor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I feel I probably need time to respond to your question, and I feel that what you've shared right now kind of deserves to have
Mm,
its own, its place
mm-hmm,
to be here, right? It's
mm-hmm. Yeah.
to be recognized by you and I mean, by you who are recognizing it, and by me who's here in this moment,
Mm,
sharing space with you and witnessing and hearing and resonating with your words,
mm,
your
mm,
experience.
mm. Yeah. Thank you for your holding and your spaciousness with what's here.
Of course.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I almost feel like, like it's funny. I don't have the words. It's actually hard to describe it, but I almost feel like in a secondary relationship with it, just from hearing it from
mm,
you,
mm,
preciousness, and
mm,
almost knowing that my role here is to honor it,
mm,
that relationship between it and you.
mm, 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 mm. Interesting. You use the word honor. We talk about honor in many ways in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me sad that uh, so many ways we talk about human beings these days, have forgotten like the sacredness. We've forgotten how to honor the
Mhm.
depth and beauty,
The spirit, right?
spirit, yeah, of
Mhm.
being human.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that almost like that which we don't see, right? But that doesn't mean it's not here.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. For each of us,
Exactly. Yes.
each of us. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
without anyone left out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
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 Mm. Well, we've been on a journey today, Marina.
Yeah, it's been lovely, Barnaby. Love it. It's
Mm.
yeah, thank you. Thank you
Mm.
for, suggesting that we meet and
Mm.
had no preconception of what we would what would happen or what we would talk about. So this is really great.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
I look forward to it. Oh yeah, this Sunday is 101, right? Ally.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm gonna sign up for that. And then I've signed up, I think, for the first 4-person one.
great, great.
I'm very much in the beginning of doing, the active imaginative working with the ally myself, very much
Yeah.
at the very beginning, I think, of it.
Mm. 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 Nice place to be.
Yes, allowing myself to really, really be in that, just very kind of what would it call like a little bit of this amniotic,
Mm.
space.
Yeah, amniotic sea.
Yeah, yeah. Where things are still, very much
Mm.
unformed. It's kind of like that, when we read about the earth, many, tens of thousands of years ago, and how it was just this, there was no life as we know it, but it was just all the potential was there. We just nobody knew that, nobody was there to know about it, right? But it
Yeah,
was still all there. Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll close with a fun fact if you
yeah,
permit.
yeah.
So I was speaking of being shocked by things. I always saw the earth as more impermanent than the sun. And while humans may not exist on the planet Earth when the sun no longer exists, at least according to science, for 4 or 5 billion years from now, what I didn't know was that because of the incredible power of the molten core of the Earth, that it will last. I forget the numbers. It's something like another 30, 40, 70 billion years. It will continue.
It was gonna outlive the sun.
That's right.
That's interesting. Isn't that amazing? I love that.
Yeah. Um,
So there must be a metaphor in that realization, Barnaby.
surely.
Don't oh, here's my silly one that just popped up. Don't underestimate the underdog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you and good luck in
Oh, thank
preparing for your
you.
training. Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm it's always kind of like what do you call it? Just a lot of work in the weeks um leading up to it, a lot of it's things I've taught, but I'm teaching 3 things. I'm doing 2 demos with
Mm.
individuals in front of the whole group, and things like that, meditations. Those are in such a It's more the teachings and the demos I'm just used to doing, and there's no preparation for those because what comes will come. And yeah, anyway, good. Well, it's been lovely. I'll see you on Sunday. I'll remember to register for that.
Okay, look forward to it. And be well until then.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
I'm Marina.
Bye.